Candace Owens just dropped a major bombshell. Is it possible, ladies and gentlemen, that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk were being tracked? Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about planes, trains, and automobiles. Just like the movie, only with a different ending, a very different ending here. Let's go ahead and get into what Candace exposed on her show Wednesday or Monday? Monday. What Candace exposed on her show on Monday about these Egyptian planes. And I want you to start asking some questions. Go ahead and ask yourself this question before we get into this. Number one, has anybody found it kind of strange that Erica Kirk has not made any type of statement towards Candace's investigation, right? Like she said something about the videos that people post on social media, but she didn't say Candace or Candace's name. Does anyone find it kind of strange that Erica Kirk also is not coming to the defense of Candace Owens publicly? So she's not shaming her, but she's also not defending her. Is there something that could be happening behind the scenes? We don't know. We don't know. But these are the things that I want you to think about as we get into this new revelation here. Check it out.
Wasn't, and he secured the SD cards. Okay. It was something that I noticed that the rest of the world would not have taken as a concrete fact. It is also how I felt, and I'm sharing this with you now for a reason, when I learned that Charlie flew into Salt Lake City that morning. Because why didn't he fly into the much closer Provo airport? Now, ostensibly, the answer is because he had an interview with a person that nobody really knows. He's a managing director of a restaurant fund. Andrew K. Smith, out of nowhere, does this restaurantology interview with Charlie. And so Charlie flew into Salt Lake to make this interview happen. That, to me, felt like an oddity, okay? Because in a typical scenario, Charlie is not going to be incentivized to go out of his way because he would only do it, actually, if there was a big donor on the hook, and maybe that's what he was told. This guy's going to give a ton of money to Turning Point USA, or B, because it was a major political person. Otherwise, for the sake of a podcast, people travel to Charlie. Okay, if you want to get Charlie on your show, you're going to travel to Charlie to make that happen. He's not going to go out of his way. To me, the common thing that always happened was they would set up an interview in an empty room at the campus. At UVU campus, they would have had this guy in the corner and Charlie would have flown into Provo. So I felt, again, didn't share it at this time, that they diverted Charlie Kirk to Salt Lake City for a reason. Okay. Something else you should know about Charlie is Charlie was obsessed with planes. Okay. My husband and him actually shared this in common, where every time we'd board a plane, Charlie would know exactly, like, way too many facts about the plane. If we boarded an old American Airlines flight, he'd be like, oh, they actually took these planes out of service in the 1970s. He just had a lot of Snapple facts when it came to planes, something that I just do not dedicate any of my time into learning about. He really liked planes and knowing everything about them. And more crucially, I want you guys to understand this, Charlie had a photographic memory. He did. Donor names, emails, numbers. Charlie Kirk was a walking Excel sheet. You'd walk into a room, he'd say, that's so-and-so, 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 so-and-so. He works for so-and-so. She works for so-and-so. They gave this much last year. That is why he was able to turn Turning Point USA into a successful machine, because of his memory. It was unbelievable. That's all going to be relevant now, okay? So you have to remember that Charlie landed into Salt Lake City at 9:23 a.m. local time. I suspect that if he had instead landed into Provo, he would have recognized the blue Egyptian plane.
Okay. Now things are getting very, very interesting. I did not know that he landed in Salt Lake City. That is interesting. First time I'm hearing that. Didn't know that there was an interview also that day before he hosted that rally. Interesting. It's just that these are things, and again, for people saying, like, why are people digging into this? Again, it's like, this is information that was, if you're doing an investigation, is probably important. Probably important. Like when they are investigating a crime or a case, they're going to look at everything that happened or transpired within that past 24 hours. At least 24 hours. Sometimes they'll go back even further. But they're going to see what happened in the past 24 hours. And I do find it kind of weird that that wasn't mentioned. Maybe I missed it somewhere, but I never remember hearing about that at all. From what I understood, what happened that day is that he arrived in Provo, Utah to host that rally there at Utah Valley University. This is the first time that I am hearing that he also had another appointment that same day, but in a different city in Salt Lake City. Now, let's get on to this part here about these Egyptian planes, because we do have to ask this question. Why were Egyptian planes there in Utah? Why are they there? And then I want you to think about Egypt for a second, because I've been pretty critical of Egypt in regards to Gaza, because Egypt is right there. They have not gone as far as they should have. Egypt is still pro-Israel, even though they said we got to get aid into Gaza. Egypt is pro-Israel the same way that Saudi Arabia is pro-Israel. So hold on to that piece. Let's continue here.
Okay. It's not every day that you see an Egyptian military craft. It is now my well-informed opinion that he would have looked at that plane and he would have recognized the blue plane, and he would have instantly realized that something was amiss. And now I'm going to explain to you very carefully why I suspect that it is highly likely that Charlie would have recognized that plane. Okay. Tail number SUBND, the blue plane. A pregnant mommy sleuth who was locked into this investigation discovered something that me and my team had missed. I consider her, obviously, and all of you to be my decentralized intelligence agents.
Oh my God, Candace is a trip. Let's continue on here.
Anyway, she sent me a rather urgent email, and I'm obviously protecting her identity for reasons that are clear. But I want you to know that this discovery is due entirely to her. She is the person that, in this regard, went max for Charlie when I missed something. Her email stated, in effect, that I was only partially right about the plane tracking Charlie, that she had done an additional 15 hours of research and was able to discern that the person the planes were actually tracking for years was Erica. Not Charlie, but Erica was the one being tracked by these planes. And indeed, it turns out that she was correct.
Okay, so this is where I'm sounding alarm bells. Why were these planes tracking Erica Kirk? That is what is being alleged. Why were they following her? Why? Now, what do we know? And I brought this up before, what we know about Erica, because she said this herself, not because this is a conspiracy or anything, but she said that her parents, I think it was her father that worked for Israeli intelligence. Her mom worked for Homeland Security, I believe, if I'm correct, if I remember correctly. So it's just very weird. Again, Egyptian military planes, and then out of all the places to go to in the United States on that day, Utah? Not DC, not California, not New York, Utah? And it just happens to be the same day that Charlie Kirk is having that rally? It's just all weird. And as I said before, some people are like, oh, people should just not talk about this and should just keep it moving. No, because the FBI obviously lied to all of you. They lied to everyone. And you cannot just shush that away and say, oh, well, it is what it is. They said nothing. They said it's this person, even though we see no video with this person. They said this, so we'll just let it go. Why were the planes tracking Erica Kirk? Were they tracking her to monitor Charlie? Were they monitoring both of them? This is very weird. It's not like Erica or Charlie were politicians. They weren't US politicians. They weren't, like these mega movie stars. Right? I mean, like Charlie Kirk, was the leader of Turning Point USA, an organization to help get Donald Trump elected, a conservative organization. But it is very strange that Egyptian military planes would go all out of their way to go to Utah for someone who leads an organization for electoral politics. Very Very weird. Very weird.
She discovered that between 2022 and September of 2025, both of those aircrafts, SUBTT, the yellow plane, and SUBND, the blue plane, showed 68 overlaps with Erica's documented locations. Okay. 68 overlaps. I have since been able to add now 73 times that this overlapped. Okay. And 29 of those instances also happened to include Charlie. Charlie was also present. And that's what I was stumbling upon when I was looking into this. I was like, why is this plane where Charlie is?
That's weird. I mean, and what's the probability of that it would just be a coincidence? Probably less than 1%. I mean, it's one thing if they just happen to be in the same location 3 times, 2 times, but that many times, I would say the probability of that being a coincidence is under 1%. So just very, very strange.
The flights were majority clustered within 5 states: Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, Delaware, and Utah. And it's a pattern that she believes is statistically not random. I'm telling you this information has been completely verified. I am showing you this on a spreadsheet now. These are all the instances in which this plane, 68 instances that this plane crossed with Erica. And I'm also going to say this includes overseas as well. Okay. So my instant question becomes, why didn't Turning Point acknowledge that this plane was familiar to them?
So it sounds like to me, and this is something that I think many people have been saying for quite some time, is that Turning Point USA seems to be involved in some type of cover up. Now, what they're covering up, I can't say specifically, but it seems as though they are covering up information from that day. They're not being transparent. And the FBI is also not being transparent. So let's put the 2 and 2 together. I still said to this day, I thought it was very strange that the FBI was involved in this case because the alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, did not cross state lines. Charlie Kirk was not a politician. It's just all bizarre. And the only other reasoning that I found that would list why the FBI would be involved in a particular case is in the instance of a hate crime. And I said this before, I really do believe that Kash Patel and his, team came out with the narrative that it was a trans person that killed Charlie Kirk. So then they could say that it's a hate crime. So then they could justify getting involved. I mean, I think that was the first alarm to me. And more people should be questioning that. So there's a list of reasons for which the FBI would get involved in a case. And the only reason that was listed there that I feel they were able to use was if this is a hate crime. So they had to make it one in order to get involved. None of us have seen any video footage with Tyler Robinson having that gun in his hand. The video footage that we saw showed a guy coming off the roof, which they say is Tyler Robinson. No gun. He has a book bag. They said he disassembled it and put it in the book bag. But then you find out that that weapon can't be disassembled that quickly. And then we're supposed to believe that he then took the time to reassemble it and put it in the woods. So does everybody get what I'm saying? They had to make it fit a reason for the FBI to get involved. And by the way, Kash Patel came out with that statement before Tyler Robinson was even arrested. Before they told you that Tyler Robinson's father turned him in, but the statement was made on Twitter prior to that it was a radical left trans person who came after Charlie Kirk. It is really important to note this, guys. Whoever gets the narrative out first is usually the one that wins. Every other narrative after that is going to be on the defense. And here's what's happening. The reason why they want Candace Owens to stop talking is because given the thing I just told you about being on the defense, usually that doesn't work a lot of times. Like you have to go all in to make that work. But Candace has been gaining followers. She now has the #1 podcast in the world, which means that the majority of people are not buying the narrative from the FBI. They're not buying it. And that's why you see them. There are people coming after her and Tucker Carlson now, asking them to be quiet, telling them that they're a target, etc. It's crazy. It's wild. It's insane. And it's just so obvious what is happening here. So obvious. So it almost sounds like to me that Erica and Charlie Kirk were being spied on. Why? Egypt again is pro-Israel. Charlie Kirk was wanting to walk away from the Israeli donors, the Israel donors, the pro-Israel donors wanted to walk away from that, as we saw in those text messages, which people at Turning Point USA said wasn't real. Everything's coming out, you guys.
When I was taking all of these figurative online bullets, someone could have easily said something, right? That's kind of a repeat thing in this investigation. Josh Hammer lies, I get attacked, Turning Point just stays silent. They know he's lying, but they allow the lie to flow. Alex Clark lies, I get attacked, I'm telling the truth. Turning Point knows it, but they kind of allow this like Catholic thing, lie to flow. And the influencers are allowed to lie. Nobody at Turning Point ever just steps to clarify that I'm onto something or I'm telling the truth about something. And when it comes to these Egyptian flights, the math on this is indisputable. There is less than a 0.00000001% probability, okay, under random distribution models that these Egyptian planes coincidentally landed around Erica at these times. Like I said, this plane was not just with her in America, it was also tracking her overseas as well. I flagged this because I was alarmed because I thought it was tracking Charlie. And I am telling you that this plane, in addition to Charlie and primarily actually was tracking Erica.
And why was it tracking her overseas? So that's the other thing. Like, put all these pieces together, ladies and gentlemen. This is insane. And I just, oh my God. Let's go on more.
Now, let's get to the day of the assassination. On the day of Charlie's assassination, we know the yellow plane took off in the morning, but the blue plane did not take off in the morning. The blue plane, SUBND, did, however, power on. And I want to be very clear as to what I mean when I say it, that this plane was on. I am saying that it was transponding, okay? It's transponding at the FBO at Duncan Aviation, a private terminal. So at the very least, they powered up the electronics. At most, they fully powered it on and the engine was running. What we know for certain is that it did not move from the FBO. Did not move. It was just on and transponding. And I want you to recognize, I'm going to make it clear for you what are the times that they were transponding. It's 2 times, and I'm going to tell you those times, but first I'm going to have Mark pull this up and he can tell us what it is that we're looking at here and how we were able to find this information about the jet that was just sitting at the FBO.
Yeah, so it looks like, based on this information that I found, and I had to figure out how to use this website because my mother didn't take enough Tylenol when she was pregnant with me, so I can't get too detailed on it. But essentially, all the flight radar websites only show when the plane is actually in the air. But if the plane is on the ground and transmitting, that data from the ADS-B transponder still goes out. So this website, ADS-B Exchange, takes that raw data. And so I was able to find it on September 10th. If you look on the very left of the frame, it shows September 10th. And it looks like there's just one data point. But what I did is I zoomed in, and the plane's actually not moving. It's just GPS is a little bit inaccurate when you're this close. But you're able to see all these different times here. And that is the UTC time zone, also known as Zulu time. So subtract 7 hours from that to get Utah time. And so I tracked all of these down, and I was able to find that the plane was transponding from 9:05 a.m. until 10:34 a.m. Then it was off. And then at 12:40 p.m., it came back on and turned off again at 1:29 p.m.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that so that everybody understands. We were able to discern from this data as follows. On September 10th, on the day of Charlie's assassination, this plane first transponded from 9:05 a.m. plus 36 seconds until it was turned off at 10:34 a.m. and 5 seconds. Then the plane turned back on, the transponder was turned back on just 17 minutes after Charlie was shot at 12:40 p.m. and 53 seconds, and it stayed on until 1:29 p.m. and 40 seconds.
Yeah, ladies and gents, look, and I know like people will say, people say that Candace is a conspiracy theorist, etc. But looking at the data that's been presented, I just don't understand how people don't have questions. That is very strange. Again, what the coincidence of that? Come on. Like think about that for a second too. I didn't even know this was a thing, but maybe it is. Why are Egyptian military planes in the United States anyway? I mean, it's just you know, and Egypt is the perfect, because here's the thing. Everybody is focused on Israel, so obviously Israel will be too obvious. You wouldn't have like Israel military plane. That would be way too obvious. Way too obvious. But Egypt is the country that a lot of times people just, when we're talking about like conflict in the Middle East, when we're talking about Israel, a lot of times people don't think of Egypt. They're thinking about Israel, they think about Gaza, think about Yemen, think about Iran, Syria, Lebanon. But Egypt kind of, for the most part, kind of flies under the radar. Again, it's another one of those countries in the Middle East that is aligned, of course, with the United States. Is basically a Western puppet, along with Jordan. So I just like this is baffling to me. This is baffling to me. And people can't say, like I said, like her or not, you can't say she's not presenting data or evidence. That's the thing that's driving me crazy, is that people are looking at, and here's another thing. People are taking their dislike or their hatred for Candace Owens to dismiss all of this instead of looking at the data and the evidence that has been presented. I haven't met one person in real life who believes that Tyler Robinson is the guy who killed Charlie Kirk, and who also isn't questioning foreign intel behind this as well. Not one in real life. Online, totally different story. And I wonder about a lot of these accounts. A lot of them are Israeli accounts, and they have a number of accounts that they've created, especially on X. And you think you're talking to somebody right here, but you're not. And you think it's a real person, but it's not. And so I don't know, you guys. I don't know. This is wild. This should be worldwide news.
So what was the blue plane doing sitting on the tarmac? We can only imagine what it was doing, okay? We can run a couple of options here. It's possible that they were just running a maintenance check. Duncan Aviation does offer maintenance repairs. It's therefore possible that it just chose to run some maintenance checks at an unfortunate time, okay? Another possibility.
But why were they here? Like and maybe I'm just in the dark on this, but I just didn't understand why they were here to begin with, right? Like why are they even in the United States? And then the timing is suspect. That's the thing about it, when the transponder was on and when it was off.
Is that a military jet, particularly one from a foreign country, would likely be equipped with encrypted satellite-based communications capabilities. If you wanted to make an untraceable phone call, as an example, that would be a good place to do so, because only the NSA would be able to intercept that call. And it's pretty obvious that the deep state doesn't seem particularly interested in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. So that'd be a safe place to communicate on that plane. Like I said, these are our options. What we can do now, however, is we can add this to our list of verifiable Turning Point USA lies, because I'm going to count this as a lie by severe omission. By keeping your mouth shut and allowing Candace to take all the figurative bullets as she points out the oddity of a plane that you guys recognized, okay? My point is that these planes were known to Turning Point USA, and we all deserve to know why they were on the ground on that day.
So this is the part, again, that is very concerning. I think if you were Turning Point USA, I want everybody to pay attention to what's been happening over the past couple of weeks. Ben Shapiro has been doing a podcast tour condemning Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and anyone who doesn't have that pro-Israel agenda that is conservative. Candace announced on her show that she left MAGA. She was done with it after they didn't want to release the Epstein files. Okay. Tucker Carlson has shots thrown his way for him to be deplatformed. That came from Ted Cruz, Randy Fine, many others that attended that conference, the Republican Jewish Conference, RCP, RJP, RJC, whatever. And we're just going through a number of things that have happened. There has also been this effort ever since the Tucker Carlson interview with Nick Fuentes, coming from Ben Shapiro and others alike in the Republican Party, to try to silence Nick Fuentes and of course, Tucker Carlson, anyone that is not, pro-Israel, but is conservative, but has a massive audience. I even saw Ben Shapiro go onto CNN to do this, which is interesting because he keeps saying and always has said that CNN is fake news. So why are you there? And what I am seeing is this, and I want people to pay close attention, because I noticed something else that's now happening on the progressive side and the Democratic Party as well, which I will get to into tonight's live stream. There is a concerted effort to try to keep the U.S. pro-Israel, and it has not been working. And it seems as though they are trying to resort to other means. So their next thing is, and I told you guys about this before, they're going to try to censor you. They're going to try to silence you. And then eventually they will try to bankrupt you. Right? So now what seems to be happening is, okay, we tried to censor them. That didn't work. Now we need to deplatform them. Now they got to go. It was also just announced last night that Ted Cruz is interested in pursuing a run for president in 2028. Pretty for sure that has a lot to do with the pro-Israel agenda. And I just want people to just connect the dots. That's all. Connect the dots. On the Democrat side, which I will discuss later on in tonight's live stream, a lot of the politicians that said Chuck Schumer needs to resign are now protecting Hakeem Jeffries. They don't want him to be challenged. They want him to keep his seat. Hakeem Jeffries is also an AIPAC puppet. That's why we call him AIPAC Shakur. And that's coming from the progressives, by the way, that are saying don't touch Hakeem. So there is a effort happening behind the scenes to still try to rehabilitate Israel, or rehabilitate those who are pro-Israel, so that the U.S. can still maintain its relationship with Israel, its financial relationship with Israel as well, and not receive as much backlash. And I already see what they're trying to do. They're going to try to go with this. Well, it's not bad to criticize the Israeli government. And I took AIPAC money before, but I don't take it now. And everybody pay attention. Pay attention to what's happening here, right? And a lot of these people are not calling out Zionism. This is why I was so excited about the AZAPAC, the PAC that is the anti-Zionist PAC, because it's nonpartisan and its sole mission is to fight against Zionism right here in the United States. But they are trying to find a way to rehabilitate Israel. By they, I mean the US government, I mean Intel, the alphabet letter agencies, because the United States, they want Israel to be there. They want Israel to pursue this greater Israel project, which they know means expelling and exterminating the rest of the Palestinians there. And they want that because they want Israel to have control in that region, because they say that it benefits U.S. interests. By U.S. interests, they means the resources in that region. And of course, in the religious aspects, that benefits the evangelical Christians. On Sunday, we will go to Sunday school on this show. When I go live on Sunday, we're going to dive into this whole idea of the rapture and what this is really all about. Because we're going to break this down. I'm going to expose some things that people have just been duped and have been duped for years. So Charlie Kirk was a problem. It would have been different if he was on the left, but he's not, right? Like he was on the right. And of course, he had a lot of donors for Turning Point USA that were pro-Israel. And one of the things that Israel really does depend on is the evangelical Christians right here in the United States. Most of the Zionists here in the US are Christian. So him deciding to walk away from the pro-Israel donors, that presented a problem, especially considering he was pivotal in helping get out the youth vote for Donald Trump in 2024. I don't agree with a lot of the things that Charlie Kirk said. Was not a fan of Charlie Kirk, but you cannot sit here and deny the fact that he did help Donald Trump get that youth vote in 2024. And younger people are now moving away from Israel. Then you got Egyptian military planes here on the day that he was killed. So we're connecting the dots here, ladies and gentlemen. Connect the dots.
What they were doing on the ground on that day. And also why Turning Point chose to stay mum when every influencer under the sun and every publication attacked me for even mentioning the planes, making it seem like I was dumb, I was stupid. Turning Point USA is able to provide answers to these questions. There is more that I know, by the way, but I want to challenge them to respond to this first. Were these Egyptian military planes familiar to Charlie Kirk? It is a simple yes or no question.
And honestly, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. It's really foolish on Turning Point USA at this point in time, because Candace just said there's more that she knows, but she's going to give them the opportunity to respond. And she's done this before with this particular, investigation, with the Charlie Kirk investigation. And they just don't seem to want to respond. And so she goes forward and she presents more information. And then they try to respond to that to try to do damage control. So she is already telling you that there's more that she knows. You would think they would get out ahead of this, like get out in front of it. And they would say, okay, yes, we acknowledge but they're not going to do that. What they are going to do is to try to say the smear. They're going to go with the smear tactic. They're going to tell everybody she's crazy, not to trust her. Sorry about that, guys. The sun is like coming in on the side here. They're going to tell everybody she's crazy, she's loony. And we've seen this script play before, right? And you ain't got to agree with Candace. You ain't got to like Candace, but just pay attention to what happens. We see this happen with celebrities in Hollywood as well. Whereas like they go after them and they don't want to do what they want them to do anymore. And all of a sudden they're crazy. They lost their mind. Remember when they told you that Dave Chappelle lost his mind and ran off to Africa? And Dave Chappelle finally came back and said, no, he didn't lose his mind, but he wasn't willing to bend the way that they wanted him to. So yes, he left to get away from all of that. That's the thing. If they can convince the world that you're crazy, then no one's going to listen to you. So that's what they've been doing. And that's what they're going to continue to do.
Answer it carefully, please, Andrew Colvett, spokesperson for Turning Point USA. Because there is something very specific, Andrew, that you told me that happened when you arrived into Provo on the tarmac that day. And it is now playing over and over and over again in my mind, and it isn't adding up.
Uh-oh.
Another point that I'd like to follow up with, Andrew Colvett, let's stick with you, is that in the hospital on that day, you told me, you were in the hospital, that you were told that there was a credible threat against me and Tucker Carlson. Specifically, you told me that me and Tucker Carlson were on a list and that you were just telling me as a friend that me and Tucker should lay low. And after you told me that, I ended our phone call and I immediately called Tucker Carlson. And I said, hey, terrified, like obviously crying all day, and telling him that he and I have to lay low because there's a credible threat. And it is now really living inside me that you did not tell me who that threat was from. I assumed the feds told you, but I asked you the question, why wouldn't the feds call me directly if there was a threat against my life? No such call has come in. How is that possible? How could someone have told you that there was a credible threat and that me and Tucker Carlson should lay low, and yet me and Tucker have since not been notified by any federal agency about those credible threats?
That's an interesting question. And here's another one. Don't forget that Andrew Colvett admitted on Charlie Kirk's show that he was the one that took a screenshot of that group text of Charlie Kirk saying that he wanted to walk away from the pro-Israel donors, wanted to walk away from all of that. He was the one who took the screenshot and sent it to someone else. And he goes, I guess someone ended up leaking it. So put all of the pieces together, ladies and gentlemen. So why would you take a screenshot of a group text of Charlie Kirk saying that he wants to walk away from the pro-Israel donors, knowing what that was going to do, knowing that that was going to be problematic to whoever he sent that to? Why would you do that? This is what I was telling you guys before about those damn group texts, group DMs. And I've seen it happen in person where you never know if somebody in that group is going to take a screenshot of that and send it to someone else. Be very careful with that. So don't say anything in a group text you don't want anyone else to hear. But the point is, Charlie Kirk trusted that he was among friends and maybe in his respect, family, maybe considered them like family. He trusted apparently that he could say that and be okay. And look at what Andrew Colvin did behind the scenes. That to me is still very, very suspect that he did that. Why did he need to do that? Why couldn't he let Charlie Kirk explain that to whoever he sent that text message to? Why couldn't he give him the time to do that? Why did he do that? I mean, that's op behavior. Seems oppish to me. Mm-hmm.
Who do those threats come from? Because I got to tell you, there are a lot of people making videos about me and Tucker Carlson, and none of them are Egyptians, okay? In fact, it's the Israelis. It is Israel that seems deeply upset with me and Tucker Carlson. They are not letting it go. They are making threats on every stage, okay? People that are tied to Israel are making threats against me and Tucker Carlson, demanding that we be canceled. So who specifically told you in the hospital room that there was a credible threat against my life? I'm going to need that information, okay? I want to know that now.
And why did they tell him that in the hospital room? Why use that opportunity to say that during that time?
Because the stakes seem pretty high. And I have a lot of questions. This is probably a good time to tell you all that I am starting to piece together another scenario that could have happened. And there was another flight that I am now very interested in. And I believe that somebody somewhere knows something about this flight. So pay attention to this. The tail number is N560TW. N560TW. It departed on the morning of September 10th from Scottsdale, Arizona. And it landed into Provo at 10:06 a.m. It then immediately turned around and departed for Santa Barbara. I'm assuming it maybe picked somebody up. And then it departed Santa Barbara at 11:37 a.m. for Scottsdale, landing at 12:44 p.m. There's a chance that you were working at the airport, that you saw somebody that morning. Maybe you were in Santa Barbara. Maybe you were in Scottsdale. Somebody saw something, and I'm asking you to email us more tips at CandaceOwens.com. I am interested in that flight. We're not done yet. There's more. I know something else about the Egyptian flights. This time, another mommy sleuth. I learned that oddly, Duncan Aviation, where that plane was transponding from, the FBO in Provo sourced rental cars for these quote unquote Egyptians when they landed a couple of days before this operation. And I didn't just learn that. I actually have the license plates number for 4 of the vehicles that they rented. Okay. Honestly, you guys, it brings me great pleasure to deliver this information because now surely Tulsi's office can get involved because those darn Egyptians are at it again. Those darn Egyptians. Here are the 4 license plates of the cars that were rented. The first car rented was a silver 2025 Toyota RAV4. The Utah license plate number is T092ZS. The second car was a white 2025 Toyota Camry. Arizona license plate, CWN N872. Don't worry, I'm going to show you guys this in a spreadsheet. The third car was a white 2023 Toyota RAV4, Utah license plate number TN12KM. The fourth was a black 2025 Toyota 4Runner, Utah license plate number Z923DA.
Any coincidence that all of them are Toyotas? Doesn't that seem weird to you guys? Not one Honda, not one Hyundai, not a Kia. They're all Toyotas? Interesting.
To the students at UVU, do we have this somewhere? Did you pull it up or just did you show them it on the screen? I didn't see what you showed them. Okay, cool. License plates were shown. Now to the students at UVU, please check your phones, your pictures from that day, because if any of those cars were seen at UVU or around campus on that day, then we're going to be able to suspect something else.
Boy, I tell you, this is just getting messy and messy. Candace got her CIA cup. Oh my gosh, the Candace Intelligence Agency. Guys, this is getting really murky, really bad. And again, it's just that the FBI is not being transparent. And I really don't know anyone personally that believes the narrative that has come from the FBI. Some may feel that Candace is going a little bit further than she should, but none of this would even happen if it wasn't for the FBI not lying to all of us, everybody. And I don't know, you guys. Like I told you, I don't trust any of this. I think you need to question everything, as I always tell you on this show, and don't always believe the first and quote unquote official narrative that is presented in corporate media. We really have to question these things. And you see us going back, questioning things that we were told years ago, right? And new information has been released. And I will say this does not look good for Turning Point USA. It does not look good. And it doesn't seem like things are going well for them. Like I said, Ben Shapiro, last time I checked on Social Blade, has been losing like followers. Like people are just not trusting it. That's why he's going on all these podcasts trying to do damage control to, again, get people to accept the official narrative that was presented by the FBI. And it's really interesting coming from someone who said facts don't care about your feelings. Candace was right about the text messages about Charlie Kirk wanting to walk away. She showed receipts for that. Then people tried to say the text messages weren't real, so then she had to show it on her phone. I think the best source of news that you are getting nowadays is coming from different forms of media. It's not coming from Fox News, MSNBC, or CNN. As I've said before, one of the reasons why I started this show was because I would just sit there and watch them tell lie after lie after lie after lie. The first time I started seeing that was during Bernie 2016, when I was watching it more so heavily. And then, of course, also in Bernie 2020, where they were just telling all these lies, lie after lie after lie after lie. And I was just like, oh my God, like, in this country in particular, in the US, Americans are very much propagandized. And what we have seen is a little bit of a shift here when it comes to Israel, where that propaganda is no longer working. Turning Point USA, Ben Shapiro, they are there doing these podcast tours to try to get that propaganda back, to try to get the American people to believe that propaganda once again. Because it doesn't just benefit Israel, which they support. It also benefits Turning Point USA because there are donors that, like the pro-Israel donors that they have. And also when it comes to people like Ben Shapiro, it benefits him. He wants to protect Israel at all costs because he loves him some Israel. So yeah, it's just shocking. It's crazy, you guys. But I don't know, man. I would have never predicted that things would have gone this way. I would have never predicted, if someone would have told me 4 years ago that Candace Owens is going to turn on Turning Point USA, she's going to, leave the Daily Wire. I just would have never believed these things, ever, ever, ever. And it just goes to show you things can change. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.